Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the JSUN sports team on JacksonSun.com.
Welcome to this week's edition of Chalk Talk. I am Sun sports columnist Brandon Shields, and that is usually Craig Thomas, but Craig Thomas apparently grew some facial hair and is celebrating Memphis' win over Ole Miss this past week. But no, this is Josh Lemons. He's helped us with sports writing and Chalk Talk in the past, and he's going to stand in for Craig this week. So.
Yeah, going to do my best. We got some good games actually coming up this week in the prep lineup. Speaking of Memphis knocking off Ole Miss, go Tigers. Briarcrest Christian, former school of Hugh Freeze,
right,
who's a coach at Ole Miss. They're taking on USJ. Talk about that matchup a little bit.
Yeah, well, not only is it the former school of Ole Miss, but the head football coach, Brian Stewart, is a former head football coach at Jackson Christian, the only state championship winning football coach in the history of Jackson high school football. So, but yeah, Briarcrest is coming in with a 4-4 record, and honestly, as far as about their team and roster, I haven't talked with anybody yet, just kind of previewing them, but I do know this about them. USJ is coming in at 7-1, Briarcrest is coming in at 4-4. There may be a few Bruin fans who may be tempted to be like, okay, 4-4, we got this, we're good. Except when you look at Briarcrest's loss, you got Christian Brothers, MUS, Hernando, Mississippi. If they're going to make their schedule any tougher, they're going to play LSU. So, you know, don't read too much into that record. They're Division II AA. They play some really good teams that USJ doesn't have on their schedule, and also Briarcrest is good enough that if USJ were to win this game, it'd be their biggest win of the year so far. Because so far their one loss is against BGA, the best team they played this year. So this would be a good quality win for them going into next week's district championship before the playoffs following week.
Native Memphian, I can tell you, Christian Brothers always has a solid program. That Hernando, Olive Branch area, they always put out that top talent. I mean,
yes.
We know Ricky Brown, of course, coming from that area to Peabody last year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, another good matchup that
Ricky Woods.
Ricky Woods,
yeah.
Yes. Ricky Brown is downtown Ricky Brown.
There you go.
Scotts Hill taking on TCA. The Scotts Hill team has really, in the past couple seasons, really sort of made a name for themselves in football, whether, you know, just sort of making the playoffs and just kind of exciting time for those guys down there.
Yeah, this time around, this is actually a non-region game, but the last couple of years, it's been a district game. And it's been kind of a measuring stick for Scotts Hill because TCA has been one of the upper tier teams in West Tennessee football, and Scotts Hill has actually competed with them pretty well for about 3 quarters, and then either depth or mistakes or whatever just kind of shoot Scotts Hill in the foot. TCA pulls away for the win. 2 different teams coming in for each program this year. Scotts Hill's coming in probably looking better overall as an offensive team, looking better, but in defense they look good too. But you got to wonder, are they going to be good enough to stop Andrew Goldsmith? Nobody's done it yet, really. We were talking on the midweek crunch earlier this week that the team that looks like they did the best job stopping Andrew Goldsmith was McKenzie, except that Andrew Goldsmith only played 1 quarter. So, but I think even then he still managed nearly 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So it's going to be a good test for both teams. It's going to be a good test for TCA's pass offense because Junior Kimmel's one of the better quarterbacks around the area. And it's going to be a good test for Scotts Hill if they can stop an athlete like Andrew Goldsmith, and they should be able to stop anybody that they'll meet in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. Heck, this could even be a playoff preview because Scotts Hill's in Region 5, probably looking at the number 2 seed. TCA's in Region 6, probably looking at the number 3 seed. They could be playing again in a couple of weeks.
That should be exciting to watch. It should be a good preview, like you said, for, you know, this is that time of year where you're seeing teams play their best football. And I think you're really going to see that with Dyersburg and South Gibson, or as we call them, the University of Dyersburg. But that's kind of the facilities, of course. The South Gibson team is much improved from last year.
Yeah, I mean, they may not be as improved as you would think just by looking at the records because, yeah, they went 2-8, but how many of those 8 losses were within one possession or real close late in the 4th quarter? South Gibson's just managing to win more of those games this year. They have been kind of reeling. I think they've lost 2 of their last 3 games after starting off 5-0. Dyersburg's coming in. They played all the good teams in the region early on, so they kind of had a hole to dig out of early on to get to the playoffs. So far, they've been digging out of it. If Dyersburg were to take a loss this week, it would knock them out of playoff. It would be their 4th region loss, so it would knock them out of playoff contention. If South Gibson were to lose, they're still not out of the playoffs, but their playoff hopes would take a huge hit with playing Milan next week, who is currently 2nd place in the region. 2 good rushing teams, but different rushing attacks. Dyersburg has that traditional wing tee that Bart Stowe is known for running, and they run it really well. South Gibson has that shotgun triple option. And there's also a question of if Austin Duncan's going to be there to run the offense again this week. He wasn't there last week for Liberty. They're hoping he'd be back this week. This is an important game for him to be back for, so I expect him to be back. So just whichever one figures out the other's defense quicker will have the advantage in this one.
You got a good matchup too with Chester County heading to Brownsville, take on Haywood. I think expectations were really high to start the season with a new coach and a new scheme and everything, and started out pretty hot, sliding a little bit lately. Can Haywood stop the skid this week?
I mean, they can. The question is, will they? Both of these teams had high expectations. You mentioned Haywood with Steve Hookman being the new coach. Chester County's coming off their first ever district championship, and they had a lot of guys coming back off last year's team. So, yeah, both had high hopes, and both still have high hopes. But here's why this game is crucial. If Chester County wins, they are for sure in the playoffs. And then obviously, if Chester County wins, Haywood loses, and if Haywood loses, they're for sure out of the playoffs.
That's how that works.
Yes. That's how it works in West Tennessee. I'm not sure about everybody else in football, but if Haywood takes this loss, they're for sure out of the playoffs. So you got to wonder just kind of how motivated Haywood's going to be to win this one. Emmett Gooden and the rest of that huge defensive line they got, they can come out ready to rip somebody's head off.
Yeah, and it must-win situation. You know, they say don't paint a cat in a corner, and you got a tomcat there, I guess. So Huntington and Wayne County. I don't really know much about Wayne County. They're of course not in our coverage area,
right.
But what do you know about them? And you know, you've got a very, very hot 8-0 Huntington team that I would say they're pretty secure into the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, this is the region championship, and the loser's still going to have a home game in the playoffs as a second-place team in the region. Here's what I know about Wayne County just from talking with Eric Swinson, the head coach at Huntington. Their quarterback's a good athlete. He's the youngest son of the head coach there. I forget his first name, but Coach Rice. His youngest son's a quarterback. They got a good running back. The running back is actually bigger than all the offensive linemen.
All right.
So I don't.
Here.
Yeah, I don't know if that just means he's just their best athlete, or if they just went with a small line to put him back there or what. Either way, the linebackers from Huntington are going to have a big guy to bring down this week. But why that's a good thing for Huntington is because Huntington's strength is its line. They got 3 backs that going to have a story about this week in the paper, who are all having good years. They're doing a good job of keeping the yards pretty equal among the 3 of them. But they're able to do what they do because they got this really good line paving the way for them. And if you got a small line from Wayne County, I give the advantage to Huntington there. But there's a reason why they're 8-0, so you can't be looking past them ahead to the big rivalry game next week against Brewston. I mean, they got plenty to play for, so I don't expect them to look ahead, but don't think you got this one in the bag either.
It's a great time of year for football in West Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, thanks for letting me sit in. I know I'm not Craig Thomas, but
well, who among us is?
That's right. That's right.
No, but thanks for coming on and helping me out with this week. And for you guys, thanks for reading the Jackson Sun, JacksonSun.com. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks to Kenny for our photographer for shooting this thing. Thanks to everybody in the world just for doing what you do. But good luck to your team this week. Follow me on Twitter at JSEditorBrandon. You'll get everything high school football related across that feed there. And thanks for watching, and good luck to your team Friday.